And we'll continue into Nox Tertia. It is still 30th of the 7th, 25. And Nox Tertia is section 16 in Liber Secundus, second volume of the Red Book. So Nox Tertia, third night, January 18, 1914. 1 second. My soul spoke to me in a whisper, urgently and alarmingly. Words, words. Do not make too many words. Be silent and listen. Have you recognized your madness? And do you admit it? Have you noticed that all your foundations are completely mired in madness? Do you not want to recognize your madness and welcome it in a friendly manner? You wanted to accept everything, so accept madness too. Let the light of your madness shine, and it will suddenly dawn on you. Madness is not to be despised and not to be feared, but instead you should give it life. Aye, your words sound hard, and the task you set me is difficult. Soul, if you want to find paths, you should also not spurn madness, since it makes up such a great part of your nature. Aye, I didn't know that this is so. Soul, be glad that you can recognize it, for you will thus avoid becoming its victim. Madness is a special form of the spirit and clings to all teachings and philosophies, but even more to daily life, since life itself is full of craziness and at bottom utterly illogical. Man strives toward reason only so that he can make rules for himself. Life itself has no rules. That is its mystery and its unknown law. What you call knowledge is an attempt to impose something comprehensible on life. Aye, that all sounds very desolate, but nevertheless it prompts me to disagree. Soul, you have nothing to disagree with. You are in the madhouse. There stands the fat little professor. Had he spoken this way? And had I taken him for my soul? Professor, yes, my dear, you are confused. Your speech is completely incoherent. I, I too believe that I've completely lost myself. Am I really crazy? It's all terribly confusing. Professor, have patience. Everything will work out. Anyway, sleep well. Aye, thank you, but I'm afraid. Everything inside me is in utter disarray. Matters are becoming serious, and chaos is approaching. Is this the ultimate bottom? Is chaos also a foundation? If only there weren't these terrible waves. Everything breaks asunder like black billows. Yes, I see and understand. It is the ocean, the almighty nocturnal tide. A ship moves there, a large steamer. I'm just about to enter the smoking parlor. Many people, beautiful clothes. They all look at me astonished. Someone comes up to me and says, "What's the matter? You look just like a ghost. What happened?" Nothing. I believe that I have gone crazy. The floor sways, everything moves. Someone, the sea is somewhat rough this evening. That's all. Have a hot toddy. You're seasick. You're right. I am seasick, but in a special way. I'm really in a madhouse. Someone, well now, you're joking again. Life is returning. Do you call that wit? Just now the professor pronounced me truly and utterly mad. The fat little professor is actually sitting at a green covered table playing cards. He turns towards me when I hear him speak and laughs. And laughs, well, where did you get to? Come here. Would you like a drink too? You're quite a character, I must say. You've put all the ladies in quite a flurry this evening. Professor, for me this is no longer a joke. Just now I was your patient. The parlor erupts in unbridled laughter. Professor, I hope that I haven't upset you too much. Well, to be committed is no small matter. As in committed to the madhouse. The person to whom I'd been speaking before suddenly comes up to me and looks me in the face. He is a man with a black beard, a tousled head of hair, and dark shining eyes. He speaks to me vehemently. Something worse happened to me. It's 5 years now that I've been here. I realize that it is my neighbor, who has apparently awakened from his apathy and is now sitting on my bed. He goes on speaking fiercely and urgently, but I am Nietzsche, only rebaptized. I am also Christ, the Savior, and appointed to save the world, but they won't let me. Who won't let you? The man who's regarded here as the fool who says, the devil, we are in hell, as in the devil won't let him. We are in hell, but of course you haven't noticed it yet. I didn't realize until the second year of my time here that the director is the devil. You mean the professor? That sounds incredible. The fool, you're an ignoramus. I was supposed to marry the mother of God long ago. But the professor, that devil, has her in his power. Every evening when the sun goes down, he gets her with child. In the morning before sunrise, she gives birth to it. Then all the devils come together and kill the child in a gruesome manner. I distinctly hear his cries. And there's inset image 109, which is this one. Well, which the image legend says, this man of matter rose up too far in the world of the spirits, but there the spirit of the heart bores through him with a golden ray. He falls with joy and disintegrates. The serpent, who is the evil one, could not remain in the world of spirits. It's interesting. Love is kind of regarded as a spear. Anyway, Jung goes on, but what you've told me is pure mythology. The fool, you're crazy and understand nothing of it. You belong in the madhouse. My God, why does my family always shut me in with crazy people? I'm supposed to save the world. I'm the savior. He lies down again and sinks back into his lassitude. I clutch the sides of my bed to protect myself against the terrible waves. I stare at the wall so that I can at least latch onto something with my eyes. A horizontal line runs along the wall, which is painted a darker color beneath. A radiator stands in front of it. It is a railing, and I can see the sea beyond it. The line is the horizon. And there, the sun now rises in red glory, solitary and magnificent. In it is a cross from which a serpent hangs. Or is it a bull slit open, as at the slaughterhouse? Or is it an ass? I suppose it is really a ram with a crown of thorns. Or is it the crucified one, myself? The sun of martyrdom has arisen, and is pouring bloody rays over the sea. This spectacle lasts a long time. The sun rises higher. Its rays grow brighter and hotter, and the sun burns down white on a blue sea. The swell has subsided. A charitable and quiet summer dawn lies on the shimmering sea. The salty smell of water rises up. A faint wide surf breaks on the sand with a dull thunder and returns incessantly 12 times the strokes of the world clock. The 12th hour is complete. Now the silence enters. Now the silence enters. No noise, no breeze. Everything is rigid and deathly still. I wait, secretly anxious. I see a tree arise from the sea. Its crown reaches to heaven and its roots reach down to hell. I am completely alone and disheartened and gaze from afar. It is as if all life had flown from me and completely passed into the incomprehensible and fearful. I am utterly weak and incapable. Salvation, I whisper. A strange voice speaks. There is no salvation here. You must remain calm, or you will disturb the others. It is night, and the other people want to sleep. I see, it's the attendant. The room is dimly lit by a weak lamp, and sadness weighs on the room. I couldn't find the way. I think the attendant. He says, you don't need to find a way now. He speaks the truth. The way, or whatever it might be, on which people go, is our way, the right way. There are no paved ways into the future. We say that it is this way, and it is. We build roads by going on. Our life is the truth that we seek. Our life is the truth that we seek. Only my life is the truth above all. We create the truth by living it. And his further commentary. This is the night in which all the dams broke, where what was previously solid moved, where the stones turned into serpents, and everything living froze. Is this a web of words? If it is a hellish web for those caught in it. Quite. There are hellish webs of words, only words, but what are words? Be tentative with words, value them well. Take safe words, words without catches. Do not spin them with one another so that no webs arise. For you are the first who is ensnared in them. The draft continues, for words are not merely words, but have meanings for which they are set. They attract these meanings like demonic shadows. For words have meanings. With words you pull up the underworld, word the paltriest and the mightiest. In words, the emptiness and the fullness flow together. Hence the word is an image of God. The word is the greatest and the smallest that man created, just as what is created through man is the greatest and the smallest. So if I fall prey to the web of words, I fall prey to the greatest and the smallest. I am at the mercy of the sea, of the inclement waves that are forever changing place. Their essence is movement, and movement is their order. He who strives against waves is exposed to the arbitrary. The work of men is steady, but it swims upon chaos. The striving of men seems like lunacy to him who comes from the sea, but men consider him mad. The draft continues. Once you have seen the chaos, look at your face. You saw more than death and the grave. You saw beyond, and your face bears the mark of one who has seen chaos, and yet was a man. Many cross over, but they do not see the chaos. However, the chaos sees them, stares at them, and imprints its features on them, and they are marked forever. Call such a one mad, for that is what he is. He has become a wave, and has lost his human side, his constancy. He who comes from the sea is sick. He can hardly bear the gaze of men. For to him they all seem to be drunk and foolish from sleep-inducing poisons. They want to come to your rescue. And as for accepting help, for sure you would like less of that, rather than swindling your way into their company and being completely like one who has never seen the chaos but only talks about it. But for him who has seen the chaos, there is no more hiding, because he knows that the bottom sways and knows what the swaying means. He has seen the order and the disorder of the endless. He knows the unlawful laws. He knows the sea and can never forget it. The chaos is terrible. Days full of lead, nights full of horror. But just as Christ knew that he was the way, the truth, and the life, in that the new torment and the renewed salvation came into the world through him, I know that chaos must come over men, and that the hands of those who unknowingly and unsuspectingly break through the thin walls that separate us from the sea are busy. For this is our way, our truth, and our life. The preceding sentence is crossed out in the corrected draft, and Jung has written in the margin Philemon identification, as in it's actually Philemon speaking, but Jung doesn't realize. It goes on. Just as the disciples of Christ recognized that God had become flesh and lived among them as a man, we now recognize that the anointed of this time is a God who does not appear in the flesh. He is no man, and yet is a son of man, but in spirit and not in flesh. Hence, he can be born only through the spirit of men, as the conceiving womb of the God. What is done to this God, you do to the lowest in yourself, under the law of love, according to which nothing is cast out. How else should your lowest be saved from depravity? Then there's image 111, and there are two footnotes which are long, and I will go into them. So with the sentence, just as the disciples of Christ recognized that God had become flesh and lived among them as a man, we now recognize that the anointed of this time is a God who does not appear in the flesh. He is no man, and yet is a son of man, but in spirit and not in flesh. Hence he can be born only through the spirit of men, as the conceiving womb of the God. And then a footnote, Jung elaborated on this issue many years later in answer to Job, where he studied the historical revelation of the Judeo-Christian God images. A major theme in this is the continued incarnation of God after Christ. Commenting on the book of Revelation, Jung argued that, quote, ever since John the Apocalyptist experienced for the first time, perhaps unconsciously, the conflict into which Christianity inevitably leads, mankind is burdened with this. God wanted and wants to become man. In Jung's view, there was a direct link between John's views and Eckhart's views. This disturbing invasion engendered in him the image of the divine consort, whose image lives in every man, of the child whom Meister Eckhart also saw in the vision. It was he who knew that God alone in his Godhead is not in a state of bliss, but must be born in the human soul. The incarnation in Christ is the prototype which is continually being transferred to the creature by the Holy Ghost. In contemporary times, Jung gave great importance to the papal bull of the Assumption of Mary. He held that it points to the Hieros Gamos in the Pleroma. And this in turn implies, as we have said, the future birth of the divine child, who, in accordance with the divine trend toward incarnation, will choose as his birthplace the empirical man. This metaphysical process is known as the individuation process in the psychology of the unconscious. Through being identified with the continued incarnation of God in the soul, through being identified with the continued incarnation of God in the soul, the process of incarnation, the process of individuation found its ultimate significance. Through being identified with the continued incarnation of God in the soul, the process of individuation found its ultimate significance. On May 3, 1958, he wrote to Morton Kelsey, quote, "The real history of the world seems to be the progressive incarnation of the deity." Okay, and then on image 111, which is appears to be a dead snake. This one. It reads, Image legend. The serpent fell dead unto the earth, and that was the umbilical cord of a new birth. The serpent is similar to the serpent in image 109. In Black Book 7 on Jan 27, 1922, Jung's soul refers to images 109 and 111. His soul says, "The giant cloud of eternal night is awful. I see a yellow shining stroke on this cloud from the top left-hand corner in the irregular shape of a streak of lightning, and behind it an intermediate reddish light in the cloud, an indeterminate reddish light in the cloud. It does not move. I see a dead black serpent lying beneath the cloud and the lightning. It does not move. Beneath the cloud I see a dead black serpent, and the thunderbolt struck in its head like a spear. Stuck in its head like a spear. A hand, as large as that of a god, has thrown the spear, and everything is frozen to a gloomy image. What is it trying to say? What is it trying to say? Do you recall that image that you painted years ago, the one in which the black and red man with the white and the one in which the black and red man with the black and white serpent is struck by the ray of God, i.e. image 109. This image seems to follow that one, because afterward you also painted the dead serpent, image 111. And did you not behold a gloomy image this morning of that man in the white robe and a black face, like a mummy? Here now, what is this supposed to mean, soul? It is an image of yourself. Image 111. And so it then continues, and so I'll just repeat that paragraph. Just as the disciples of Christ recognized that God had become flesh and lived among them as a man, we now recognize that the anointed of this time is a God who does not appear in the flesh. He is no man, and yet is a son of man, but in spirit and not in flesh. Hence, he can be born only through the spirit of men, as the conceiving womb of the God. What is done to this God, you do to the lowest in yourself, under the law of love, according to which nothing is cast down. For how else should your lowest be saved from depravity? Who should accept the lowest in you, if you do not? But he who does it, not from love, but from pride, selfishness, and greed, is damned. None of the damnation is cast out either. Drought continues. But who does this under the law of love will move beyond suffering, sit at the table with the anointed, and behold God's glory. If you accept the lowest in you, suffering is unavoidable, since you do the base thing and build up what lay in ruin. There are many graves and corpses in us, an evil stench of decomposition. Draft continues, but God will come to those who take their suffering upon themselves under the law of love, and he will establish a new bond with them. For it is predicted that the anointed is supposed to return, but no longer in the flesh, but in the spirit. And just as Christ guided the flesh upward through the torment of salvation, the anointed of this time will guide the spirit upward through the torment of salvation. Just as Christ, through the torment of sanctification, subjugated the flesh, so the God of this time, through the torment of sanctification, will subjugate the spirit. Just as Christ tormented the flesh through the spirit, the God of this time will torment the spirit through the flesh. For our spirit has become an impertinent whore, a slave to words created by men, and no longer the divine word itself. Draft continues. The lowest in you is the stone that the builders discarded. It will become the cornerstone. The lowest in you will grow like a grain of rice from dry soil, shooting up from the sand of the most barren desert, and rise and stand very tall. Salvation comes to you from the discarded. Your sun will rise from muddy swamps. Like all others, you are annoyed at the lowest in you because its guise is uglier than the image of yourself that you love. The lowest in you is the most despised and least valued, full of pain and sickness. He is despised so much that one hides one's face from him, that he is held in no respect whatsoever, and it is even said that he does not exist because one is ashamed for his sake and despises oneself. In truth, he carries our sickness and is ridden with our pain. We consider him the one who is plagued and punished by God on account of his despicable ugliness. But he is wounded and exposed to madness for the sake of our own justice. He is crucified and suppressed for the sake of our own beauty. We leave him to punishment and martyrdom that we might have peace. But we will take his sickness upon ourselves, and salvation will come to us through our own wounds. The first lines refer to Psalm 118:22. Passage echoes Isaiah 53, which Jung cited above. Okay, and Jung continues. The lowest in you is the source of mercy. We take this sickness upon ourselves, the inability to find peace, the baseness, and the contemptibility, so that the God can be healed and radiantly ascend, purged of the decomposition of death and the mud of the underworld. The despicable prisoner will ascend to his salvation, shining and wholly healed. The draft continues exhaustively. Why should our spirit not take upon itself torment and restlessness for the sake of sanctification? But all this will come over you, for I already hear the steps of those who bear the keys to open the gates of the depths. The valleys and mountains that resound with noise of battles, the lamentation arising from innumerable inhabited sites, is the omen of what is to come. My visions are truth, for I have beheld what is to come. But you are not supposed to believe me, because otherwise you will stray from your path, the right one, that leads you safely to your suffering, that I have seen ahead. May no faith mislead you. Accept your utmost unbelief, it guides you on your way. Accept your betrayal and infidelity, your arrogance and your better knowledge, and you will reach the safe and secure route that leads you to your lowest. And what you do to your lowest, you will do to the anointed. Do not forget this. Nothing of the law of love is abrogated, but much has been added to it. Cursed unto himself is he who kills the one capable of love in himself. Cursed unto himself is he who kills the one capable of love in himself, for the horde of the dead who died for the sake of love is immeasurable. And the mightiest among these dead is Christ the Lord. Holding these dead in reverence is wisdom. Purgatory awaits those who murder the one in themselves, who is capable of love. You will lament and rave against the impossibility of uniting the lowest in you with the law of those who love. I say to you, just as Christ subjugated the nature of the physical to the spirit under the law of the word of the Father, the nature of the spirit shall be subjugated to the physical under the law of Christ's completed work of salvation through love. You are afraid of the danger, but know that where God is nearest, the danger is greatest. How can you recognize the anointed one without any danger? Will one ever acquire a precious stone with a copper coin? The lowest in you is what endangers you. Fear and doubt guard the gates of your way. The lowest in you is the unforeseeable, for you cannot see it. Thus shape and behold it. You will thus open the floodgates of chaos. The sun arises from the darkest, dampest, and coldest. The unknowing people of this time only see the one. They never see the other approaching them. But if the one exists, so does the other. Jung here implicitly cites the opening lines of Holderlin's Patmos, which was one of his famous poems, reading, "Near is the God, and hard to grasp, but where danger is, salvation also grows." Also quoted in Heidegger extensively. Okay. So I'll just reread that short paragraph to continue. The lowest in you is the source of mercy. We take the sickness upon ourselves, the inability to find peace, the baseness, and the contemptibility, so that the God can be healed and radiantly ascend, purged of the decomposition of death and the mud of the underworld. The despicable prisoner will ascend to his salvation, shining and wholly healed. Is there a suffering that would be too great to want to undergo for our God? You only see the one, and do not notice the other. But when there is one, there is also another, and that is the lowest in you. But the lowest in you is also the eye of the evil that stares at you and looks at you coldly and sucks your light down into the dark abyss. Bless the hand that keeps you up there. the smallest humanity, the lowest living thing. Quite a few would prefer death. Since Christ imposed bloody sacrifice on humanity, the renewed God will also not spare bloodshed. Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine-fat? I have trodden the winepress alone, and no one is with me. I have trodden myself down in my anger, and trampled upon myself in my fury. Hence my blood has spattered my clothes, and I have stained my robe. For I have afforded myself a day of vengeance, and the year to redeem myself has come. And I looked around, and there was none to help, and I wondered that there was no one who stood by me. Therefore my own arm must save me, and my fury upheld me. And I trod myself down in my rage, and made myself drunk in my fury, and spilt my blood on the earth. These lines actually cite Isaiah 63, 2-6. For I took my misdeed upon myself, so that the God would be healed. But just as Christ said that he did not come to make peace, but brought the sword. Matthew 10:34. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. So he in whom Christ becomes complete will not give himself peace, but a sword. He will rebel against himself, and one will be turned against the other in him. He will also hate that which he loves in himself. He will be castigated in himself, mocked, and given over to the torment of crucifixion, and no one will aid him or soothe his torment. Just as Christ was crucified between the two thieves, our lowest lies on either side of our way. And just as one thief went to hell and the other rose up to heaven, the lowest in us will be sundered in two halves on the day of our judgment. The one is destined for damnation and death, and the other will rise up. In answer to Job, Jung wrote of Christ on the cross, this picture is completed by the two thieves, one whom goes down to hell, the other into paradise. One could hardly imagine a better representation of the oppositeness of the central Christian symbol. But it will take a long time until you see what is destined for death and what is destined for life, since the lowest in you is still unseparated and one, and in a deep sleep. If I accept the lowest in me, I lower a seed into the ground of hell. The seed is invisibly small, but the tree of my life grows from it and conjoins the below with the above. At both ends there is fire and blazing embers. The above is fiery, and the below is fiery. Between the unbearable fires grows your life. You hang between these two poles. In an immeasurably frightening movement, the stretched hanging welters up and down. We thus fear our lowest, since that which one does not possess is forever united with the chaos and takes part in its mysterious ebb and flow. Insofar as I accept the lowest in me, precisely that red glowing sun of the depths, and thus fall victim to the confusion of chaos, the upper shining sun also rises. Therefore he who strives for the highest finds the deepest. To deliver the men of his time from the stretched hanging, Christ effectively took this torment upon himself and taught them, quote, be crafty like serpents and guileless like doves. It's Matthew 10:16. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. For craftiness counsels against chaos, and guilelessness veils its terrible aspect. Thus men could take the safe middle path, hedged both upward and downward. But the dead of the above and the below mounted, and their demands grew ever louder, and both the noble and the wicked rise up again, and unaware broke the law of the mediator. They flung open doors both above and below. They drew many after them to higher and lower madness, thereby sowing confusion and preparing the way of what is to come. But he who goes into the one, and not also at the same time into the other, by accepting what comes toward him, will simply teach and live the one and turn it into a reality, for he will be its victim. When you go into the one and hence consider the other approaching you as your enemy, you will fight against the other. You will do so because you fail to recognize that the other is also in you. On the contrary, you think that the other comes somehow from without, and you think that you also catch sight of it in the views and actions of your fellow men, which clash with yours. You thus fight the other and are completely blinded. But he who accepts what approaches him, because it is also in him, quarrels and wrangles no more, but looks into himself and keeps silent. Insert image 113, about which noted an extremely long image legend, which I therefore will not, it's like a page long. It's really long, so I'm not going to read it. Anyway, it goes on. Not that long. He sees the tree of life, whose roots reach into hell and whose top touches heaven. He also no longer knows differences. He also no longer knows differences. Who is right? What is holy? What is genuine? What is good? What is correct? What is correct? He knows only one difference, the difference between below and above. For he sees that the tree of life grows from below to above, and that it has its crown at the top, clearly differentiated from the roots. To him, this is unquestionable. Hence, he knows the way to salvation. To unlearn all distinctions, save that concerning direction, is part of your salvation. Hence, you free yourself from the old curse of the knowledge of good and evil. Because you separated good from evil according to your best appraisal, and aspired only to the good and denied the evil that you committed nevertheless, and failed to accept, your roots no longer suckle the dark nourishment of the depths, and your tree became sick and withered. Therefore the ancients said that after Adam had eaten the apple, the tree of paradise withered. Your life needs the dark. Your life needs the dark. But if you know that it is evil, you can no longer accept it and you suffer anguish and you do not know why, nor can you accept it as evil, else your good will reject you. Nor can you deny it since you know good and evil. Because of this, the knowledge of good and evil was an insurmountable curse. But if you return to primal chaos, and if you feel and recognize that which hangs stretched between the two unbearable poles of fire, you will notice that you can no longer separate good and evil conclusively, neither through feeling nor through knowledge, but that you can discern the direction of growth only from below to above. You thus forget the distinction between good and evil, and you no longer know it as long as your tree grows from below to above. But as soon as growth stops, what was united in growth falls apart, and once more you recognize good and evil. You can never deny your knowledge of good and evil to yourself, so that you could betray your good in order to live evil. For as soon as you separate good and evil, you recognize them. They are united only in growth, but you grow if you stand still in the greatest doubt. And therefore steadfastness in great doubt is a veritable flower of life. He who cannot bear doubt does not bear himself. He who cannot bear doubt does not bear himself. Such a one is doubtful. He does not grow, and hence he does not live. Doubt is the sign of the strongest and the weakest. The strong have doubt, but doubt has the weak. Therefore, the weakest is close to the strongest, and if he can say to his doubt, I have you, then he is the strongest. Giraffe continues, hence Christ taught, blessed be ye poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Luke 6:20. But no one can say yes to his doubt unless he endures wide open chaos, because there are so many among us who can talk about anything, pay heed to what they live. What someone says can be very much or very little. Thus examine his life. My speech is neither light nor dark, since it is the speech of someone who is growing. My speech is neither light nor dark, since it is the speech of someone who is growing. That ends section 16 in Liber Secundus, second volume of the Red Book, Nox Tertia.